Hello, it's Rennie. Welcome to another episode of the podcast, Surviving and Thriving, and welcome to Heal with Rennie if you're watching on YouTube. And also, happy belated birthday to myself. I just had a birthday a couple days ago. I am officially an elder millennial. No, I'm kidding. Um, but I'm definitely been feeling the aging settling in, and it's just interesting to be aging another year and reflecting on what all has shifted for me in this past year. But the topic that I want to talk about today is navigating seasonal depression, okay? Especially if you are someone who resonates with being a black sheep. Maybe you're distant, maybe you're spending the holidays alone or just with a few people, or just maybe your holidays look different, maybe you're grieving. I'm someone who is the combination of those things. So this year has been a really pivotal year for me. It's been transformative. It's been very difficult. There's been a lot of shedding, a lot of things I've had to let go of this year. And this is the first holiday season post separation from my previous partner. And also with a completely different co-parenting dynamic where I'm having a lot more time with just myself. And I've just had a lot more time to tend to my mental health, just, as I've been kind of navigating all of these shifts. And it's not been easy. This time of year historically has been the time of year that I was most likely to be hospitalized or have mental health episodes that were more severe because I'm also like in between a lot of really difficult dates for my family. So I just like passed my brother's death anniversary, which is like a couple days before my birthday. And then my older sister who passed away, her birthday is like a couple days after. And for a lot of time growing up, I wasn't really celebrated, whether it was because of death anniversaries, whether it was because people were grieving or just busyness that happens right before Christmas. My birthday has always fallen between like, it just always came at what seemed to be the worst time. And so I've always struggled with the birthday blues. And this year being a very difficult year, the birthday blues were very severe. But thankfully, shout out to my bestie. I was able to go out and have a really nice lunch and just chat and like just feel really good and feel really light and just really excited for 2026. But I just want to talk about like how I'm trying to stay grounded and how I've been taking care of myself this season because even though I have definitely been struggling with heavier emotions, I've definitely been navigating seasonal depression. I felt like the lack of energy. I felt like, the mental overwhelm. I have to say that for everything that I've had to go through this year and everything that I've been struggling with, and all of the things that come up for me this time of year with grief, family issues, relationship changes, family dynamics shifting, pretty much every aspect of my life has shifted, and there has been really a lot of difficulties. Really proud of the way that I'm handling the season. There's definitely been some things that I'm not as like proud of, some old patterns that have slipped back in here or there, but I have to say that given all of the things that I've had to navigate this year and knowing that this historically is a really rough season for me, I'm actually quite proud of how I'm handling it. And so I wanted to share just some of the things that's kind of helping me get through others who also might be navigating seasonal depression at this time. So, if you are the black sheep like me and you're separated from your family, some things that I've really been like focused on is shifting my perspective away from the relationships that have not worked out. And because I've shed so many relationships this year, friendships, partners, situationships, all of the things, it can be really easy to kind of get stuck in what hasn't worked out or the people who haven't shown up for you in a way you'd hope for them to, or the relatives or, the people that you hope were there and they can't be there for whatever reason. Um, Instead of focusing on that, I've really been trying to be mindful of being as present and as grounded as possible, which is really hard for me because I live up here in my mind. But I've also been like in addition to grounding, just really focused on shifting my perspective to the things that have worked out. Every time I think about something that didn't work out, I try to reflect on, journal, remind myself of something that has worked out, whether it's been this year or in past years. And when it comes to just thinking about and getting nostalgic about people who couldn't join me for the season, whether it be because they passed away, because our relationship ended, I think that it's normal for us to reflect on ending of relationships and grieve. I think allowing space to feel those emotions is important. So if I need to cry, I will cry. I cry all the time. I let myself feel what I need to feel, but I also reflect on like some of the good memories I have because it's not all bad. Like when I think about my siblings who passed away, they were the ones I felt closest to. So, um, during certain aspects of my life anyway. And so, I try to remember the things that they enjoyed or the things that they brought up in me that made me feel good. And lately, I've been really thinking about what I can do to honor them. And I think that taking care of myself is definitely top of the list. I think that that's what they would want. And if you are struggling with grief, it can be really hard to prioritize caring for yourself. But I think reminding myself that that's literally something that they would want. So if I do, as a spiritual person, believe that they watch over me, then I want them to see me actually taking care of myself and being happy. And so, again, while I let myself feel what I need to feel, I've also been really looking at things that bring me joy and things that remind me of them. So, a lot of like inner child things are coming up for me because, it's family. And so, those types of things can bring up feelings of nostalgia and sadness. And so, one thing that I've been doing lately is rewatching old movies and like old shows that I used to really enjoy as a kid, especially during seasons of life when those people who are no longer with us were there. So right now, the I kind of go through these phases where it's like different things that I used to like as a kid. But right now, I've been dabbling back into Bratz because I completely somehow spaced and forgot I had a little Bratz era. And so now I've been like rewatching the Bratz movies. Luckily, there's a lot of like free Rats movies on YouTube. So I've been rewatching those and it's bringing me joy because it just reminds me that even during times of my life where, I look back and I think it was all bad, there were things that brought me joy, even if it were brief moments. And so kind of like trying to find those things is what I've been working on. And as a mom, I've also been trying to find small ways to recreate that for my little one because, the holidays are very different this year. Things have shifted. It's not going to look the same. And I think that I would have tried to fight this in the past, but now I've just kind of allowed myself to embrace that change and just know that just because things are changing and they're not the way that they have been in the past doesn't mean it has to be all bad. I can let myself feel the grief of like the things that didn't work out, but also I can create new rituals, new traditions, and it doesn't have to be anything that's so extreme or extravagant or fancy. It can be small. So I went like a couple days ago with my son to see Christmas lights because I used to love driving through neighborhoods to see Christmas lights. And I realized it actually been a couple of years since we actually just like got in a car and drove to a neighborhood to do it. We usually like would go to some type of event or something, but um, this is like the first year where I was like, I used to love this. I would love for this to be a tradition with my child. We haven't done it in a couple of years. Let me just like find something. Luckily, I live in a city where there's lots of things like that happening. And we found like this really, really cool neighborhood, and it was nice because I was really not feeling it. I almost did not want to go, but I think it was helpful because it felt like I felt obligated to, and I enjoyed it. I think it was both fun for my child, but also like really special for me to see that because I used to really enjoy that. And so finding things I used to love as a kid and like finding little ways to honor that version of you. I think during the season, especially if you are someone that's distant from your family, this could be like you're emotionally distant. Maybe you set boundaries or cut them off. This could be physical distance, whatever, right? But I think finding like those things that you used to do that brought you joy and, can help heal like the nostalgia by reminding you that there were good things too, I think is really important. Because again, I think it can be really hard to get our mind out of the rut of like all of the things that hasn't worked out, all of the things that has gone wrong. And I think you should take moments to reflect on that. And I think you should take moments to feel what you need to feel. I'm not at all somebody who advocates for suppressing, repressing, or bypassing because I think that's detrimental. And in my experience, when you do that, it usually ends up coming back to bite you in the butt because you'll start to see negative behaviors and patterns kind of surface because you're not addressing something that is being communicated within your spirit. So for me, doing those small things with my son and also with myself has been really important. I've definitely struggled with isolation. I think a lot of people struggle with isolation this time of year as well. And so, I think be gentle with yourself, but also do push yourself when you need to. Like, there will be weeks where I just won't leave the house. There will be times when I just don't want to get out of the bed. And so, I think set expectations for that acknowledges that this season is harder for you so that you're not pushing yourself too far. In the past, I would make this whole big to-do list, and then if I couldn't accomplish it, I would be angry, and it would just worsen the symptoms. It's not really conducive to good mental health to be overextending ourselves, especially during this season. So if you already have a lot on your plate with family, with work, whatever, don't like overwhelm yourself by beating yourself up about all the things you didn't get done. Instead, be like really mindful of what needs to shift in your day to day to allow yourself to get the rest that you need and to also like at the same time challenge yourself to do the things that you know will help you feel better, even if you don't feel like you're going to get any immediate relief from it. So, for example, I really struggle to get out of bed during this season, this time of year. I really struggle to go outside and leave my house. I have worked from home for the past like 5 years, so I've become a hermit. I'm someone who keeps to myself. I'm very antisocial. I only have a few people that are close to me in this huge city I live in, and I don't really like go out and hang out. I'm not the type of person that does that. If I go out, it's brief. Like I'll go out for a couple hours and then I'll go straight back home. And so even if I'm not going to meet anyone, I have still been trying to challenge myself to get sunlight. Even if I don't leave my house or my neighborhood, I still try to get sunlight because I know that getting the vitamin D, I take supplements as well, is imperative this time of year because it worsens my depression if I'm not getting any sunlight. So if I'm just sitting in a dark room or just staying in my bedroom all day, I'm gonna feel significantly worse. And so I've had to even if I don't do all of the things that I know I need to do to feel better, there are some things that have become kind of non-negotiable for me. And if I have a day where I don't do it, I don't beat myself up, but I have to do it the following day because I know that if I let myself completely spiral, I'm gonna go into a state where I'm basically catatonic and I'm not even gonna be able to get out of bed. And so um it is exhausting because I'm someone who has been perceived and diagnosed as more of a high functioning depressed person. But it's also because I've really been practicing and working on consistency and discipline and how I take care of myself. And a lot of this is opposite action. It really is just enforcing opposite action because you're mostly just not going to feel motivated to do it when you're struggling with seasonal depression or any form of depression or severe anxiety for that reason. It will leave you feeling really stuck. And if you've been burnt out, especially with work or with relationships or with life or whatever, it's going to be even harder to do it. And so, I think one is just catching myself if I start to beat myself up or get too harsh on myself. Like, I really am mindful of my inner dialogue at this time of year. And then two, like really pushing myself. Like I think last week I didn't leave the house much until I was with my son, and then it was like I was only leaving when I was with my child. But if I was alone, then I really wasn't doing much, even if it meant like skipping out on going to get groceries or things that I need. I was just not leaving my house to do anything. And so during tougher weeks like that, which, in the lead up to my birthday is usually like that because that's when like my brother's death anniversary is around. I at least made it a point to open the windows and the doors and let sunlight in or get movement, even if it meant I didn't leave my house. So even if I didn't go outside and get sunlight or go outside and go for a walk, I still would make myself dance, even if I couldn't dance for as long as I used to. I would make myself dance for at least 5 or 10 minutes because dancing is something I enjoy. And even if I don't feel energized or motivated, usually I would be annoyed at myself for trying to push myself to do it. And then once I would start to do it, I would feel so much better. Um, Somatic movement in general is very regulating when you have been down and like you start to get the momentum the more you make yourself move around. So even now, if I'm at home and I'm not leaving my home, I don't try to just, stay in the bed or stay on the couch. I try to move around. Like I'm moving around my house, I'm cleaning, I'm listening to a podcast, I'm dancing, I'm like writing or I'm studying or I'm learning something that I'm interested in. On the days where I genuinely don't have the energy at all and I really can't even get myself out of, get myself into those movement routines, then what I usually will do is just put something on that's really calming for my nervous system. There are like movies and shows that I consider comfort shows. I think a lot of us have that. So if I'm really, really down, then it's time for me to put on my comfort show. I might rewatch like my favorite episodes of The Office. I might rewatch some kid movies that I like for right now it's Bratz. Or I put something funny. Like I'm really mindful of the content that I digest when I'm feeling this way as well. So, I'm not reading the news as much as I would normally read. I try to stay informed as it makes sense and as I'm able to also take care of my mental health because I'm not going to be any help knowing these things if I'm spiraling into crisis mode and need to be hospitalized. So I don't beat myself up for being a little bit more out of the loop this time of year because I need to take care of myself. So I will take a break from the news this time of year. I will read more or just listen to music and just be a little bit more mindful of like what I'm watching and listening to. Wholesome things right now only for me. I'm someone who in the past really liked really heavy stuff. I realized a couple weeks ago when I started to notice that I was spiraling deeper into the seasonal depression. I was starting to pay attention that the stuff that I was watching was heavier. I was watching like this K-drama that was really sad. And then I was watching like a lot of like recaps from the news. The things that I was looking at on social media weren't really helpful. And I noticed like, okay, this can't be helpful. This can't be like helping me feel better. And so I switched things up and even without even like necessarily moving or incorporating some of the other things, just simply changing what I was ingesting in terms of content already lifted my mood. Watching things that are wholesome, that are funny, that are sweet, that are innocent, that definitely has helped. So curating your algorithm this time of year could be, especially if you're spending a lot of time in bed or on the couch, like that could be imperative. Like I would rather be scrolling through and seeing like funny, what's it called? Joy baiting videos where people are like going out in the street and they're making people happy with these little joy baiting cranks or like funny babies and funny and like cute cats and puppies on my feed than, seeing people suffering. And again, this is not to say bypass, this is not to say to not ever be informed about things, but this is just to be mindful of your energy levels and your mental state and curate your content and your algorithm accordingly. And then some other things that I'm trying to really work on which can be really tough for me is food and just like being mindful of changes in my appetite and how I'm taking care of my body. Very difficult for me to do this time of year. I think a lot of people can resonate with that around the holidays, but historically, I either restricted too much, binge too much, or just turned to the sweets. And I have to say, lately, I've definitely had some slip ups where I turned to the sweets. But again, I think the biggest thing that shifted for me this year is in the past, whenever I would go to these behaviors because they made me feel comfortable or they were grounding in some way, even if they weren't the healthiest behavior. I would beat myself up and it would just like worsen the entire situation. And then I would feel a million times worse. I'm not doing that this year. If there are some days where I just want to chow down on ice cream and wings and I had some Christmas yogurt covered pretzels yesterday. I'm not going to beat myself up for it. I'm not going to tell myself, that I'm not going to punish myself, is what I'm trying to say. I'm not going to punish myself. I'm reminding myself that I'm doing the best that I can. Something about those yogurt covered Christmas pretzels made me feel safe in the moment, made me feel grounded in the moment, and I'm not going to beat myself up for that. I know that tomorrow is a new day. And so if I feel like I'm starting to feel bad in my body or this is making things worse, I have tomorrow to do better. It used to be the opposite where I would eat things that weren't necessarily great for me. And then I would tell myself, oh, well, why bother? I'd beat myself up. I would guilt myself about it. But then I would just continue on the cycle and it would just get worse and worse and worse because I was beating myself up and because I was telling myself, well, why even try? Like all of these really negative thoughts, and it would just make things worse. Whereas now it's like, yeah, I might have a day or two where I eat some ice cream or something that's not as healthy, but I'm not gonna beat myself up and I'm not gonna make myself feel guilty. Not going to be dogmatic because I'm a human and I'm experiencing something really heavy, and this is making me feel safe. And this is my attempt to take care of myself, even if I know that there's a healthier choice. And so, if I know that there's a healthier choice, then tomorrow I can make a healthier choice. But I'm not going to beat myself up for the choice I made today because there's a reason I made that choice. And so, yes, I have indulged a lot in the past couple of weeks, and I am not mad about it at all. In fact, having this attitude has actually, I think, helped me kind of get back on track because I'm not beating myself up. Whereas in the past, when I would beat myself up, again, I would kind of get stuck in the cycle of just eating trash all the time now because I just basically gave up on taking care of myself. Whereas now it's like, okay, there might be days where I have some ice cream and some wings or fast food or whatever, or order out. And then the next day I'm eating like soup and vegetables. So, so it's very interesting to see just how differently my behavior changes when I'm just a little kinder to myself. I think that's honestly the biggest takeaway I have is to be a little bit kinder to yourself this season. Talk to yourself and treat yourself the way you would treat a friend that's struggling. If you knew that you had a best friend, a close friend, that was struggling with grief, that was struggling with depression, that was having trouble staying motivated, getting out of bed, getting through the day, you wouldn't yell at them and tell them they're stupid because they decided to eat some ice cream. You wouldn't yell at them because they didn't get everything off their to-do list. You would encourage them and tell them that, it's a rough time of year. You're doing the best you can. You might offer them some solutions or advice, but at the end of the day, you're not going to beat them down even further. So don't do it to yourself. And I know that's easier said than done. It takes practice, but I think we can dehumanize ourselves a little bit. It's like we know everyone around us is a person, but we don't treat ourselves like a person. We're also people, we're humans. And this has been a really difficult year for a lot of people. So I think the best thing we can try to do is be kind to ourselves or at least cut ourselves some slack and give ourselves some grace. And this kind of leads me to my other point. Also, because, my birthday just passed and I'm just around my birthday, I reflect on how much I've changed as a person. As you are thinking about, the close of this year and the holidays and family and the things that maybe hadn't worked out as you hoped or the people who aren't around, I think it's equally as important to focus on how much you've learned and grown. I think we kind of skip the fact that this part of the year is a really great time for reflection when things are starting to slow down. I know for some people it's not, but for those who do get a moment to kind of rest and reflect, it's a really good time to think about how much you've learned and grown. And even if you have made mistakes or done things you're not proud of, or even if things haven't worked out, think about how much you've learned in a year, in 5 years, in 10 years, or how much you've changed as a person. And, sometimes it can be difficult because your life might not look like the way you hoped it would, but I think this is also an opportunity for you to shift your own expectations. That's something that I've been working on, especially someone who's in my early 30s. I've been really thinking about what I thought I wanted for my life or what I expected for my life versus what has happened so far. But I've also really been acknowledging how many obstacles and how many challenges I overcome or have overcome in the past couple of years and really for the majority of my life. I don't think we give ourselves enough credit for surviving all of the things that we've had to survive. And if you're someone who lives with severe mental health issues, mental illnesses, depression, and you struggle with seasonal depression and you're still making it through each day, that in and of itself is something for you to reflect on and celebrate and give yourself credit for. And I think when we say give ourselves credit, we don't really know exactly what that means. So, what I mean when I say that is to take a second to actually acknowledge that you've probably overcome a lot of really difficult things in your life. Um, and by overcome, I mean like you're still on this earth. I'm not talking about the traditional societal standards of what success looks like. I'm not talking about having a specific relationship or specific career or whatever. I'm talking about the fact that you're still here on this planet. That is an accomplishment because it is very hard to get through things like this. And so when I say give yourself credit for even still being here. And then take time to just like rest and ground in that, right? If you have moments where you can take off from work or relax and just chill, and if you do have time away from family or responsibilities, this is a really great time to not only reflect on how much you've overcome, how much you've learned, how much you've grown, but also to just like give your mind and your body a break if you can. So for me, I'm a little bit more intentional with the self-care during the winter months. I love a nice bubble bath. If I can take a nice long shower, I'll do that. If I can put on some calming, regulating music, I love a good sound bath in the evenings lately. And, there are other times where I'm feeling like a lot of rage or heavier emotions come up, and I also like, honor that too. If there are days where I'm feeling a little bit angsty, I'll put my rock playlist on. I put my emo playlist on. If there are days where I'm feeling a little bit sadder, I got my playlist queued up for that too. So I just think like doing things like that to acknowledge how far you've come, but also taking care of yourself, honoring your emotions, letting your nervous system relax for a little bit, make yourself a nice bath, make yourself a warm tea or like whatever you like to drink. If you are someone that's like, I could use a sweet treat, get yourself some ice cream and don't beat yourself up about it. I think that like treating ourselves the way that we would treat a friend or someone we really genuinely love, because we should be treating ourselves this way anyway, but I know it can be hard to do. That's the best thing you can do for yourself. So have some me time. And if it's difficult for you to be alone, I think that discovering the things that you love or pushing yourself to do those things that are more regulating for you can be really helpful. I'm someone who recommends like anything that's somatic, anything that is tangible and regulating. So for me, music is a big one. Um, Also, movement, even if it's as simple as you stand up for 10 seconds to shake your entire body like a dog. Like just shaking, tapping, those types of things can be really regulating. I do a lot of lymphatic drainage massages too, which I find has been really calming for me. Um, and I've been like really into like um acupressure and things like that lately as well, which has been regulating because I tend to also get a lot of headaches whenever I'm struggling with depression. I've been staying on top of my supplements, again with the like bubble baths and also like aromatherapy. So like I love to keep I used to be like a really big candle person, but then I found out it's not really a lot of candles aren't that healthy. So I do burn a lot of like natural herbs and incense and things like that, but just even having like a nice scent, sometimes I would just boil like cinnamon sticks and apples on my stove just to have that warm scent. And cinnamon is a herb that I work with a lot this time of year because I'm really into herbalism and it's very calming. Cinnamon is like a natural antidepressant. And then you have nervines too, like lavender, chamomile. So like doing things that are regulating to your nervous system can be really helpful. Taking naps, even like going back to basics parenting yourself. I think this is a time of year where we get to practice parenting ourselves and nurturing ourselves. And it's not always intuitive if you are someone who struggles with motivation and self-care, especially when you're feeling severely depressed. But it doesn't have to be like elaborate. Just I think this is a great season to really tune into the small things and the little things that can help you feel just 1% better a day, right? And even if you don't feel immediate relief from it, I think just the more you become consistent and form these habits, the better you'll feel in the long term. Like me just like opening the door and getting sunlight every day, even if I don't step outside. I didn't initially realize that was a big deal or was helping me, but I can feel the difference after a couple of weeks or so. So just things like that. And I actually went to get like some paints recently as well to do something with my hands because I find that doing something tactile is really regulating for me. And if you're also like a neurodivergent person, that could be something that's helpful for you this time of year or just in general, honestly. But I think finding a ritual for you is really important this time of year and knowing that you shouldn't push yourself to achieve as much as you would other times of year if you know that this is a difficult time for you. I know that I'm gonna get way more done in the warmer, hotter months than I would when the sun is going out at like 4:30 p.m. And so I set my expectations accordingly, and it helps me to kind of avoid or work through any of the negative self-talk that might try to creep in when I feel like I'm not being quote unquote productive. I think throw the word productive out the window when you're struggling with seasonal depression because it's for one, it's rooted in capitalism, so who cares? But for two, it's not going to help you feel any better. You're just going to be thinking about all the things you feel like you should be getting done that you're not. When your body and your nervous system, you're trying to survive. So I think that mindset is something you should carry with you throughout the season so that you can catch yourself when you start to beat yourself up. Um, and write down a list of the things that would normally make you feel better, and then try to incorporate things like that, even if it's little simple things, even if it's like what you watch on social media or whatever. I think it's just really important to find those small joys during this time of year. And if you are distant from family, that doesn't mean you have to be isolated from everyone, right? Maybe you don't have a lot of friends. I don't have a lot of friends, but I do have close friends. So the people who are in my life, I try to be more intentional about being present and grounded when I'm with those people. And then, also seeking out spaces, whether it's online or in person, other spaces as well. I think there are so many more communities that exist now. So if you do feel lonely, you do feel like you need that support, there are so many peer support groups. There are so many grief groups. There are so many mental health groups that exist both on and offline. And so I definitely encourage you to check that out. You might not have anything necessarily in your region, but there are even national organizations that do things like over Zoom, for example. And, during times in my life where I felt the most isolated, those were really a saving grace for me because it was nice to connect with other people that just understood what I was going through. And so, if you feel like you're in need of support and resources, I definitely encourage you to check that out. I'm going to share some resources and links also in the show notes of this podcast episode. So, definitely go take a look at that. But yeah, I'm going to wrap it up here. And I just want to share that if you're feeling alone this season, I really hope that you are able to find spaces and people that make you feel seen and heard and know that you're not going through this alone. So many of us, especially I feel like this year, are either by choice or by force spending holidays alone or we're grieving or just processing a lot of the challenges that we went through this year. Because again, this year was really tough. And so I just hope this gives you encouragement that you will get through it and don't beat yourself up. Surviving and getting out of bed every day is enough. And really do be intentional about trying to find the things that bring you joy, even if they're just simple, small things, simple, small steps you can take each day, even if it's just one thing. It really will make a difference in the long run. So I hope this helps someone. I really do. And also, quick update, I recently received my spiritual coach certification. And so I will be preparing some offerings to help those on their healing journeys, which I'm very excited about. I'm also shifting a little bit of my content, so you'll probably see like my shorts and my short form content is slightly different because I am leaning more into the spiritual side of things, since that's something that's been really helpful for me on my own healing journey. And so if you resonate with all things woo-woo, mystical, esoteric, then I encourage you to tap into that. I am actually open for tarot readings right now as well. So if that's something you're into, then I'll have a link to that as well. And I encourage you to follow me on TikTok and YouTube because I will be a lot more active there. Otherwise, thank you so much for listening. I really, really hope that you all take care of yourselves this season. Find those small, brief moments of joy and stillness. And until next time, bye.